This is John's House, a daily place for real conversation about Frederick. From the decisions that affect your neighborhood to the events, nonprofits, restaurants, and local leaders that make this community move. Local, regional, national, and always connected to home. Come on in. John's House starts now.
Hey, good morning. We made it to Wednesday, middle of the week. You are here in Studio 401 with me, John Hunt. Bella is behind the board today while I continue to learn the ins and outs of running the show, producing the show myself, which is something fun. I'm learning something new every day, which is always a good thing, right? And no matter what you do in life, learning something new every day is a very good thing. We have what's turned into kind of a serious subject. And a lot of people have been talking about AI, and I'm going to get into that, but not in the same way that everybody else is talking about it. Okay. I think there are proper uses and good ways to use AI. We're going to talk about that, but I have something that absolutely I stumbled on by accident last night, and it drove me absolutely crazy. And it is music related. And since unfortunately this happened after my show yesterday, I wasn't able to, add my 2 cents and say rest in peace to Dolly Parton, who passed away yesterday at the age of 80. She is a woman who did so many good things. I mean, she wasn't just a talented musician. She didn't just sing Islands in the Stream with Kenny Rogers and Jolene, which many people covered throughout the years, including Jack White, which is kind of, if you've never heard Jack White's version of Jolene, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a live version that's kind of hard to find, but if you YouTube it, you could look up Jack White Jolene. Of course, Miley Cyrus did it too, which doesn't count in my book, but okay. She did so many good things in the community. She had her park. She was opening, super gas stations to compete against Buc-ee's in the South. I think she had gotten the first one open in Tennessee. She's been in movies, that movie 9 to 5, and others throughout the years. And her last music that she made, believe it or not, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio, not too long ago, in the 2 years ago. And so many people are like, why? And I have this complaint about a lot of different artists, but some people complain, why is Dolly Parton allowed to be in the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame? And so Dolly said, okay, fine, I'll make a rock album. And she did. And it was actually pretty good. That was like Loretta Lynn, at the end of her career. She had never been, Loretta Lynn had never been given a Grammy Award, ever. Through all of her years, Coal Miner's Daughter, all of that stuff, she had never been given a Grammy Award. And speaking of Jack White, he teamed up with her and they made an album called Van Leer Rose, which has one of my favorite songs of all time. It's called Portland, Oregon, with her and Jack White together. Freaking awesome. Another one to look up if you've never heard that song. But, she had never won a Grammy, and Jack White helped her get her first and only Grammy for Van Leer Rose, which, again, great album. But Loretta Lynn never got enough credit throughout all her years. Now, Dolly had won the Grammy Award a couple of times and some other music awards through the years, much deservedly so. But I can't say she'd be rolling over in her grave because she's not there yet. She just passed away. But about the subject that I'm going to talk about here on the show today, and it is music in AI. We're going to get to some things going on around the community in a little bit. And before we get there, too, I also want to remind you, check out all the podcasts here on the Everything Frederick Live Network. And if you'd like to get involved in the show, you'd like to reach out to me directly if you agree or disagree. First off, you can make your comments as we're going through this. right there on the screen, or you can like and subscribe below, and you can hit me up directly at rockthewave13@gmail.com. Okay. I'm going to get on the soapbox here for a little bit. First off, I think there are good uses for artificial intelligence, AI. People can adjust pictures. I think it's taken too far sometimes, but you want to make a family photo look nice. There's nothing wrong with that. If you own a small business and you're growing your business, you're trying to cut every penny that you can so that your business can grow. I'm not talking about multi-billion-dollar companies. I'm talking about Joe Schmo's House of Cards, trying to build that business up. And, there are uses for AI. You want to make a photo for your business. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to help yourself write. Maybe you're not a good writer. Maybe you're great at math, but you're not a good writer. So you have the idea, you put the idea down, and then you turn it into ChatGPT or whatever, and it helps you write a better letter to help represent your business better. Nothing wrong with those things. I think that's a good, positive use for AI. AI is now being used in the medical field. I don't know how I feel about it, being somebody who's been through a lot of medical work and surgeries. I'm past the $6 million man right now in work that's been done on my body. And I'm starting to get a lot of questionnaires from Johns Hopkins and other places asking me, do I think that AI should be used in the medical field? And would I use an AI doctor for basic things? No, not for a heart transplant, but would I use an AI doctor, to help me have the right dosage of medicines? Or would it be okay for AI to re-up my meds if I don't need to go in for a visit? I don't see an issue with those kind of things, as long as, I'm going to question it if the med dosage is wrong, or if all of a sudden it's drastically changed. I'm going to call the doctor. I'm going to call Hopkins. I'm going to say that doesn't work. Wait a minute. Why is that being adjusted so much? The AI did this. And then the doctor's going to answer and say, oh, well, that's another thing. And yes, you have to watch AI when you write. When you write anything, you have to make sure you got to read behind it. You don't just push the AI button, push ChatGPT and send the letter off, because sometimes the wording is maybe different than you would have used. You should read it. You should look at it. And when you make, AI videos and things like that, sometimes the AI voice can't get the words right. And you got to check those things. I mean, those are things that are important if you're going to use AI, but you got to be educated on what you're doing. So yesterday, and I do this thing, I'm working, I'm prepping for the show, the night before, coming up with ideas. What am I going to talk about in the show tomorrow? Scribbling notes, old school on paper, because I don't type very well. And so last night I had music playing in the background, which I generally do in my studio, on YouTube. It has my favorites. It knows stuff I like, artists that I like. And as I was doing that, and I was also on Facebook looking for events going on. That's actually kind of what started it. And so, again, I'm in the rabbit hole, as I call it, on YouTube. I see this thing pop up on my Facebook. So I'm scrolling through Facebook looking for events that are going on here in Frederick to talk about in the show today. And I see this thing that says, hey, would you like to make AI music? And I'm like, what? What is that all about? So I click it because I'm curious. And yeah, I know it's probably clickbait and I'm probably going to get stuff in my email. Actually, I already have. And it's already popping up all over all my other social media, because I clicked it once. However, I was curious, and I'm thinking about following through with this. I don't know. But it said, would you like to make an AI song? Completely non-human generated AI song. And I'm like, okay, let's see what the process is. So I'm still on my phone. I'm pushing the next button. Okay, I'd like the song to be a rock song. Click. I'd like it to be a male singer. Click. I would like the song to be about motivation and hope. Click. So I'm going through all of those things and I'm adding them to design a song. And then, of course, it says you need to pay $29.99 a month. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm not going to push that button to use the service. But it got me curious enough to say, So I looked on my YouTube and I clicked AI songs. I wrote in AI songs and all this music. I mean, a ton of music. The first thing that popped up was a remake of Billie Jean as a different genre song. And it was in like 5 different genres, but it was completely AI. It used the words of Michael Jackson and made it a completely AI song. And I was like, okay. So I'm looking up these, in quotation marks, artists, projects is what we're going to call them for this bit. All right, we're going to call them projects. We're going to call them artists because it's not really an artist. All right, it's not a band. It's not a musician. So we're going to use the word projects for today's show. All right. And I see all these great songs. Bohemian Rhapsody, Cocaine by Eric Clapton, which is the first song I ever played as a professional jock. At the wrong speed. That's another story for another day. Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah song, which there's only two real versions of that song. Leonard Cohen's version and Jeff Buckley's version. Forget about the rest of the versions. They don't count. Just listen to those two. You got it covered. John Lennon's Imagine, Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple, Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, Stairway to Heaven. That's sacrilegious for a cover band to do Stairway to Heaven. Nevertheless, AI to do Stairway to Heaven, right? That's crazy. And, Wicked Game by Chris Isaac, another great song, which you've seen in movies. Usually somebody's rolling around on the beach in the sand and the waves are crashing up on them while they're making love or something. I mean, that's what you think of when you see the song Wicked Game. Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. The Beatles, there were a whole bunch of Beatles songs on there. It was crazy, the amount of remakes done by AI that I saw online yesterday. And then some of my favorite bands, I love Tears for Fears. They had the song Mad World, which wasn't a big, huge hit, but one of my favorite Tears for Fears songs. Look it up. Not during the show. Wait till I finish, then go look it up, okay? And Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits, another one of my favorite. Everybody talks about, Money for Nothing, Chicks for Free. Sting is on the song, with Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits. But on that same album, Brothers in Arms is such a deep song. Such a great song. Mark Knopfler's guitar solos are freaking awesome. All these songs, and I was about to throw up on some. I mean, it wasn't that the music was bad. If you had never heard the original before, you wouldn't know any better. You really would not know any better if you'd never heard the original Brothers in Arms. You'd be like, oh, no, that's not a bad song. That's kind of cool. Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. Everybody sings that song. And I heard the remake, the AI remake, and I just shook my head. And again, you can get it in 5 different genres. You can have the country version of Don't Stop Believin'. You can have the rock blues version. You can have the the R&B gospel version. There are insane amounts of different copies of the same song, not made and not being paid to the artist out there right now. So I found this one particular artist, and for a moment, you could put her up on the screen. The name was Jessica Purple, was one of these artists, these projects, if you will, that I found yesterday. And Jessica Purple did a lot of those songs that I named as rock songs. And of course, the artwork is AI. It's not a real person. But there's a character named Jessica Purple. And here's the deal, okay? Human musicians are now projected to lose a lot of money over AI. Human musicians are projected to face a cumulative financial loss of over $10.5 billion with a B dollars between 2023 and 2028, with annual losses of over $4.2 billion alone by the year 2028. This is all due to generative AI. This all according to a story done by the International Confederation of Societies of Authors and Composers called CSAC. and supported by UNESCO. That research warns that musicians will see over a quarter of their traditional revenues at risk in the next 5 years. Streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and others use a pro rata payment model. All subscription money goes into a big pool, which is distributed on the percentage of total streams it receives. So if you want to make Taylor Swift some money, you got to watch, 2,000 Taylor Swift videos to get her $1. Something like that. They get, a percentage, less than a penny per click. So if you want to make her money, you got to watch a lot of her videos, for example. The streaming service Deezer reported receiving over 75,000 fully generated AI tracks per day. Okay, per day, making up 44% of all their new daily uploads. Independent monitoring trackers like sloptracker.org revealed that only 50 prominent AI artists, in quotation marks, managed to siphon off $2.5 million from the Spotify royalty pool alone last year, taking that money directly out of the pockets of human creators. AI makes it incredibly cheap and fast to mass produce complete songs. Fraudsters use AI to generate thousands of tracks, upload them to streaming platforms, then deploy the digital bots to stream them 24/7. And this Jessica Purple that I was talking about, that is a digital bot. There's no real person named Jessica Purple, but that's just the picture that comes on the screen when you want to play one of those videos. And they distribute those bots 24/7. So imagine all the people who just stumble onto them and just click them because they're curious. Hundreds of thousands every day. Deezer noted that 85% of the tunes generated are AI tracks that are 100% fraudulent. It is absolutely crazy. So some of my favorite new artists, I even found AI videos of John Mayer, who is one of my favorite artists now. Forget old John Mayer. Forget very young John Mayer, who said things that he shouldn't have said about women he was with. And if her name was Jennifer and she was famous, he was probably with her. Jennifer Aniston, Jennifer Love Hewitt, all of those. And he told the stories and he probably shouldn't have. Okay. But he's asked for forgiveness for that for years. He still does so much good in music and he's so amazingly talented, especially if you ever see him live. All right. So John Mayer, I'm like, really? Somebody AI'd John Mayer. That's crazy. But one of my favorite new artists, everybody thinks because I'm a little older that I don't know anything about new artists. And I love an artist named Hozier. I've seen him live. The dude is freaking amazing. If I could take one guy's voice other than Freddie Mercury to make me a hit song, it would be Hozier. Okay? He's that guy right now. And Hozier isn't worried about AI in music. Not really, because he's saying art is a human endeavor. Go ahead and hit that clip, please.
For sure. I'm just kidding. But yeah, like AI is I do think it could be a disruptor with regards like how people work. I think creatively there is that question of will it be able to make art. I try to thankfully I can kind of step outside of it, but art as a human endeavor, I think for now I can safely say it can't. You know what I mean? It's art is a question of the humanities, and I don't think AI isn't human. You know what I mean? So it deals in likelihoods and probabilities and stuff like that, and offers things that it thinks will sound correct. You know what I mean? Or thinks will be in the guesswork.
Thinks that musicians are safe, but he realizes, let me put myself back up. There we go. I thought my hands were off. Anyways, Hozier, talented artist, realizes that the music is better, of course, when it's done by a human. And I don't mean made up on a computer by a human. I mean, actually on a microphone, playing guitars and drums and other instruments that's different. And he feels like that musicians are still going to be safe and people are going to still buy their music. However, that money is being siphoned away by AI generated projects. Again, I don't want to use the word artist because that's not what they are. That's not art. It isn't. No matter how you slice it, it's not art. Okay. Again, I said at the beginning of the show, there are positive ways to use AI. You're a small business. You want to make a quick graphic. Those kind of things are good. That is good. You're trying to get something basic done for your business. You're trying to write a letter. Again, positive ways to use AI. Again, always check behind it. Make sure it's saying what you mean it to say. Because once you send that letter out, you can't take it back. It's now yours. And you can't go back later and say, oh, yeah, I sent the letter on AI. Sorry, I didn't mean that. That's your client's going to think you're crazy. They're going to think you're absolutely insane if you do that. But a large portion of musicians' revenue relies on functional music, like background tracks for YouTube videos, indie video games, corporate ads, and stock music libraries. AI prompts generators like Sunos and Udio allow businesses to bypass human composers entirely. Experts project that AI will destroy over 60% of these production music library revenues by 2028. So there are musicians who have made their life, kind of like Charlie Sheen on 2.5 Men, making, music for background tracks and making music for commercials and things like that. And that's not AI. That is human produced music that is being used and paid for by those services. The place called Tidal became the first major platform to completely stop paying royalties on any track made entirely by machines. So good for Tidal. Paying royalties, Spotify is now cleaning its database, removing 75 million automated or spam tracks over this rolling 12-month period. Now, here's the place that gets me a little crazy. Official chart groups such as Australia's ARIA implemented strict bans barring wholly AI tracks from entering their music charts. That's good. And I heard about this before, but I never really checked it out. I like country a little bit, but new country doesn't have a soul as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to say it. New country, here's how they figure out new country. Okay, they'll take a really good-looking hot guy or a really hot girl, and they'll say, let's slap some tight bedazzled jeans on them and throw them up on the stage, and we're going to write them a song, and they're going to sing it, and we're going to adjust that song a little bit, and the girls are going to scream, and they're going to love it, and they're going to buy lots of songs. And that's how a new country artist is made today. It's true. It's scary, but true. I mean, there's no more Kenny Chesney's, Alan Jackson's, even before those guys, they were still writing and making really good music back in the day. Okay. Tim McGraw, there have been a lot, Faith Hill, a lot of great artists through the Dolly Parton. We just talked about her a little bit ago. But that's the new way to make a country artist. Now, yeah, Chris Stapleton or, there's some other artists that are deeply talented, but it's harder for them to climb the ladder than the one that the country station is playing 250 songs total on is going to play every 2 hours. That's how radio works now. And I could get into another subject, well, I'll save for another day, but the whole monopoly of the music scene. You have the Clear channels or iTunes Radio or iHeartRadio or, Audacity. They have the audacity to change their name so many times because they keep reorganizing in bankruptcy and the government keeps letting them do it. So they own all the radio stations, 90% of them. Yes, there are some small local country stations that are owned by other individual media. And then what does Clear Channel own? Oh, yeah, they own the venues that the artists have to play at. They own all the venues. All is a, loose word, but the majority. And then they own Ticketmaster, where you got to buy the tickets to see the artist that's being played on the radio station. If that's not a monopoly, I don't know what is, right? Aren't we protected from monopolies? Didn't they break up the phone company back in the day for the same reasons? You know, Ma Bell and AT&T became all these other phone companies for the same reasons. That's crazy. But now you're going to add AI to the mix. And it gets even crazier. Okay. An AI country project called Breaking Rust recently reached #1 on the country digital sales chart with the track Walk My Walk. A gospel R&B project called Zanaya Monet has gotten tens of millions of streams and charted on the hot gospel charts and emerging artist charts. Major music, and this is all Billboard. This is right here in the U.S. This is Billboard magazine, okay? The magazine that I read religiously. I was like the first one to grab it when the mail came at the radio station every week because I was programming stations and I wanted to know the hottest music before anybody else did. And we didn't have, we couldn't go on the computer and pull up the videos for brand new songs that were coming out. We didn't have anything else other than the A&R guys who would come to the radio station and bring us the music, or Billboard magazine or Variety or, one of those magazines that would tell you what's up and coming. And so then, the stuff that's bubbling under the top 100, as they would call it, I would go listen to and say, oh, this is a good song. Let's get it on before anybody else does. I loved breaking new music. That was so cool. But now there's so many ways to get your music. It's kind of crazy. It's really, really hard for radio stations to do that. So a lot of them have thrown up their hands and said, fine, we're going to play 250 songs total all day long, all night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that has what has kind of hurt terrestrial radio, which is, again, another subject for another day. And I really do want to do a radio day where I bring in some of my best friends that have been in the music business for, a long time to talk about the differences between radio, in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and today, which sounds like what adult contemporary stations say, right? We got the best hits of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. Yeah, 20 hits from the 70s, 20 hits from the 80s, 20 hits from the 90s. I mean, how many times can you hear, and I love the song Hold the Line by Toto. That was a song that I heard when I was listening to terrestrial radio a bunch last week. And I heard that song 4 consecutive days at exactly the same time in the car by one particular station. That's crazy. Really? I love the song, but come on. You don't think there's 15 other hit songs by Toto that you could put in that spot? All right. I'm digressing a little bit, but all of this music stuff makes me a little crazy. I'm a big music geek, no question. Some people are book geeks. Some people are trading card geeks. Some people are sports geeks. I'm a little bit of a sports geek, but I'm a lot of a music geek. Okay. So here's the deal. I was talking about the project called Zanaya Monet. Again, has gotten tens of millions of streams and charted on the hot gospel songs and emerging artist list. I can't read my own handwriting. Major music executives were initially fooled and they thought she was a real person, or it was a real person. A bidding war reaching over $3 million ensued. Hollywood Media, led by Interscope executive Neil Jacobson, signed Monet, also known as Talisha Nikki Jones. That's the real person who invented Zanaya Monet, and signed her to a multi-million-dollar per year contract. At least one AI project has debuted in each of the last 36 weeks on the Billboard charts. Some of these bands, and I don't know any of them. I think I maybe have heard of Solomon Ray, but these other artists, I'll give you some of the names, and if you've pulled up their music, you got fooled, maybe, or maybe you knew. Child Pets Galore, Unbound Music, Enely Blue, Juno Sky, Kane Walker, World Hive, Solomon Ray, who I mentioned, and Josh M. Those are all completely AI artists who have hit the different charts. So, some of them are country charts, some of them are the R&B charts, some of them are the pop charts. some of the rock charts. But those are all artists that you've spent money on that you may or may not even know that they're AI. I mean, some of the music today, don't get me wrong, I think some of the music, especially in the pop world, it's, and I'm not trying to be the old guy who says, oh, only my music is cool. Like my parents, that Led Zeppelin, that's the devil. No, my parents weren't like that. But a lot of parents of my friends were like, you shouldn't play that Led Zeppelin. They're the devil. But now I listen to some of the stuff by a number of these artists and I'm like, hey, is that really a song? My daughter did that. I don't know. She's in middle school. We're driving to school and Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon comes on the radio. Or I don't know. I had it on somehow. Maybe it was a cassette. I don't know. And she said, Dad, is that really a song? I'm like, yes. But I listen to this music now, some of it, a lot in the country genre and the pop world. Oh my gosh. It is the same generated voice box stuff. I got to be careful because I do try. I know I'm allowed, but I try not to curse on the show. All right. But I got to shake my head. And again, I love new music. There are a lot of new musicians that I think are cool. But new pop musicians I struggle with, and new country musicians I struggle with. Because again, it's as close to AI as you probably can get by using a human. Again, like I said, slap some bedazzled jeans that are really tight on a guy and send him up on stage and the girls will scream. The Beatles actually had talent and they went on the stage and the girls screamed. Some of these musicians, I just got to shake my head. And that was actually where I was going to take a break. So thank you for the sign. But just something to think about. And you can go back and you can look this up yourself. Unfortunately, when you do that, you probably, when you click, you're probably giving them a tenth of a penny or something that isn't going to another artist. So go back. Oh, and by the way, one more thing before I jump out of this topic. I talked about that artist named Jessica Purple. And I've seen her a couple times in concert. And every time, if she's anywhere nearby, I'm going to go see her. An artist named Beth Hart. If you've never heard Beth Hart is the best, hands down, blues rock female singer of all time. Some people say, Hart, Anna Nancy Wilson. There are a lot of other great rock and roll, Joan Jett, a lot of other great rock and roll female musicians. But Beth Hart, hands down, number one, rock, pure, lay it out on the line, bluesy rock. She plays a lot with Joe Bonamassa, who's a great guitarist. Look up Beth Hart and look up Jessica Purple. Play them back to back with your eyes closed. Jessica Purple took the vocal cords out of Beth Hart's throat. Is basically what happened with this AI project called Jessica Purple. So, and yeah, if you do check out Jessica Purple, play like 15 Beth Hart songs so that Beth Hart gets her tenth of a penny for each one. All right, we're going to come back with some stuff going on around the region. Thanks for letting me vent a little bit about AI music on John's House today. My name is John Hunt, and this is John's House.
Frederick, if you're craving real Chicago-style flavor, Rosati's is bringing it. From their cheesy, loaded deep dish pizza to crispy tavern-style thin crust, every bite is packed with that classic Rosati's taste. And don't sleep on the steak and cheese sub. Hot, hearty, and seriously satisfying. Rosati's has been serving family recipes since 1964, and now you can get it right here in Frederick. Stop by 911 West 7th Street or order online at rosatispizza.com. Rosati's, keeping it real since 1964.
How much should law enforcement be able to see when you drive down the street? Flock cameras are raising serious questions about public safety, privacy, tracking, and your data. Now, Everything Frederick Live is bringing the conversation face to face. Join Maryland gubernatorial candidate Dan Cox, Frederick County Sheriff Chuck Jenkins, former Frederick Mayor Jeff Holtzinger, and State Senator William Folden for a special Flock Camera Town Hall. The questions are yours. The conversation starts here. Join us Wednesday, August 26th at 7 p.m. on Everything Frederick Live.
Sponsored by Taco Bar in Frederick and Gaithersburg and Taquito in Hagerstown. Taco Bar is in West Point Plaza, off Route 40 in Frederick and at 3 Russell Avenue in Gaithersburg. And Taquito is at 812 Frederick Street in Hagerstown. Taquito offers the same great quality food with a drive-through experience. TacoBar1.com or Taquito by TacoBar.com.
Okay, we are back, and I'm calm now. I'm off the soapbox. I'm relaxed. It's like, let's go with the rest of the show. And I don't have a ton. That was one of the reasons that I was looking for outside information rather than, I mean, it affects us here in Frederick. We all love music. Hopefully you love some kind of music. I don't care if you're listening to Tony Bennett from back in the day. You know, that's also great music, but it's all original, right? Frank Sinatra would be rolling over in his grave. I could imagine what he'd be saying about, this AI stuff. Yeah. All right. Couple things. First off, another edition of Frederick Feud is coming, sponsored by your friends at Ken's Transmission and Automotive and Middletown Valley Bank. That's going to be right around the corner. We want to thank them. We're going to be talking about that a lot over the next couple of weeks because it is the championship battle between SOAR and Andrea's House. Those two nonprofits have the opportunity to make $1,000, and we'd love for you to come out and see it. Rockwell Brewery is the place. It's the new version of Rockwell Brewery as well. Just $25 in advance. Get your tickets. And each time, we've done it twice now, and we've had great crowds. A lot of people buying tickets and helping out all the nonprofits around the region, handled by Danny and the Good Morning Frederick crew. And, of course, the Everything Frederick Live Network. And we also want to thank some new sponsors for joining the crew here. Hosopol HVAC. And I'm looking forward to some of the stuff that those guys are coming up with. And we're going to have them on the show here in the near future. I had a good meeting with them yesterday. The Pickle Park at 355 Ballinger Center Drive. You've seen Craig on the show as we were working toward the grand opening of the Pickle Park. It is fully opened. You can go over there and play at random. You can stop by and they'll get you hooked up. So stop by and say hi. And then right next door to them, we'd also like to welcome new sponsor Peak Performance Center at 355 Ballinger Center Drive. Again, directly next to the Pickle Park. So you want to get a good workout. I mean, every dude in there is like massive. They will get you where you need to be. If you just want to be toned, or you want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, they're going to get you there. Rosati's Pizza, who was on the show yesterday over on 7th Street, delicious Chicago-style pizzas. And by the way, after the show yesterday, I took my sandwich home. We had 3 delicious subs that they brought with Italian beef. Now, I thought mine was just the Italian beef, and I got it home, and it had the au jus all already on it. And inside the Italian beef was Italian sausage. That was a massive sandwich. I had to cut it in half. There was no way I was eating the whole thing. And then the rest became dinner. So that was quite delish. And their au jus sauce also top notch. So, and I know there were some other sandwiches here yesterday that the rest of the staff devoured and enjoyed from our friends at Rosati's. And then just across the parking lot from them over on 7th Street is Hot Fired Arts. So whether you're interested in learning to do art projects or having a party there or a kids party, they will get you all set up. Check them out. Hot Fired Arts over on 7th Street. And of course, our good friend Jerry Donald for delegate. Jerry Donald running for the 4th District of Maryland. And he will be back on the show a few more times between now and Election Day. And you'll see his ads talking about what he does. So we thank all of those new sponsors that we've gotten on board over the last couple of weeks. And then the last thing I want to touch on, and I'm not going to get too deep into it today, but the Frederick County Council debated a proposed law yesterday banning any county government employee from cooperating with immigration and customs enforcement agents in most circumstances, in quotation marks, as they said. in most circumstances. So what are those circumstances? When do they decide it's okay to work with ICE and not okay to work with ICE? I think ICE has its place, but is that place in front of a schoolyard when kids are getting dropped off? I think that's not the place. All right. That's another deeper subject. And we've touched on it a little bit here on the show, but that's a much deeper subject than we could get into in the rest of this show. But I just wanted to throw that out there because it happened. And I'm not looking to do news as in if it bleeds, it leads, which is what most media does. If somebody died, if somebody was badly hurt, if a car flipped over 15 times and the body was ejected from the car, that's the kind of stuff that, mainstream media wants to see as the lead story. If we bombed a country or whatever. I'm making the show about what's going on locally and subjects that either affect or interest people right here in our area. So that's kind of what John's House is always about. If you'd like to be part of the show, we would love to have you on the show. You have a new business, restaurants. We love having restaurants in here to talk about your local restaurant. Again, we're not looking to have Applebee's or McDonald's on, nothing against them. But again, we're trying to keep this thing local. And if you're a local new business, a local business has been around for a while, local small business. If you have a nonprofit, we love talking about what you're doing and how you and we can help the community. That's one of the things we're all about here on the Everything Frederick Live Network. And it's very simple. You want a spot on the show? I've got 2 chairs right next to me. You can stop by and join the show just by touching base with me. We'll get a day and get you set up at rockthewave13@gmail.com. And last but not least, we named all those great sponsors and more are coming on board daily. Why is that, you say? Well, do you say that? I think you do. You say, why is that, John? The reason is because we have more than 1.8 million views to our content on the Everything Frederick Live Network over the last 60 days. That's what I said, 1.8 million views. There aren't that many people listening to terrestrial radio or watching terrestrial television or reading the local newspapers or magazines. Now, I'm not knocking any of those. Those are all media that you should use at some point in your, in the building of your business. But this is one place where we're hyper local. Absolutely. We're hyper local. We focus, all of our content focuses on whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. We focus and target members of our community. And that's the business you want if you're located in the community, is it not? Yes, it is. That's why a number of these businesses are getting the message and jumping on board with us. So we'd love to have you on board. And we have some very cost-effective packages that can let you dip your toe in the water and see how good it'll work for you. So contact me again directly at rockthewave13@gmail.com. Yes, I can make that pitch here. I'll give you that 30-second elevator pitch right here on the show. Why not? I think we're going to have to make a video and make it a commercial so that people can see it. Make it an ad so people will see that on all the podcasts and why it's a good idea to work with the 15 plus podcasts on the Everything Frederick Live Network. We have 3 daily podcasts, which includes Danny and AJ's Good Morning Frederick at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, John's House at 10, and Frederick Sports, which comes your way at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Everything from the Frederick Keys, who were in their last homestand of the season, all the way to the Little Leagues. A little bit of everything, and it's all right here in your backyard. Take advantage of it. All right? All right, let me get out and do the other things that I get to do. Go shake hands and kiss babies. And if we see you out on the street, say hi. We'd love to have you on the show. So again, rockthewave13@gmail.com. Like and subscribe down below. Click the little hearts. And again, we'd love to hear and see your comments either right there or you can comment to me directly. Like I said, rockthewave13@gmail.com. I am going to head out into the beautiful sunshine. Again, we're not getting above 80 degrees today. Go see the Keys tonight or find something else fun to do around the region. My name is John Hunt. Remember, you are what you watch and you listen to. So don't listen to that AI music, okay? I'm John Hunt, and this has been John's House. Have a great day.
Thanks for stopping by John's house. Make sure you share, like, and comment because this conversation is better when Frederick is part of it. Tune in every weekday for more local stories, real issues, community voices, and the people helping shape Frederick. We'll see you next time.
This episode is a proud production of the Everything Frederick Live Podcast Network. Your home for Frederick's best podcasts, streaming daily on YouTube.